So the whole world of media is already presented and reflected here at the Deutsche Welle Global Media Forum. And when I see Franz Josef Radermacher sitting there in the second row, and maybe you sort of come slowly towards us and grab the podium, I see a man who has done so many things, it would take me at least 5 to 10 minutes to talk about it. I will not do that. He is a mathematician and an economist. He's a thinker, he's a speaker, he is somebody who is possessed by good ideas and who drives them forward. I have had the pleasure to listen to him on a number of occasions. I promise you it will never be interesting, boring, or anything else. He has actually had the idea, together with a number of other people, to say, you know, us here in Germany, we profited after the Second World War. Why not come up with an idea, something like the Global Marshall Fund? He is a member of the Club of Rome, and with some of his people there, he's developed some more ideas. He's written a number of books, and I'm just going to quote the one book that is actually quite hopeful, almost like the ray of hope that we had at the end of most of the videos. You actually wrote about a world with a future. Now, there is no exclamation mark behind that. There is a condition to that. So, Mr. Radermacher, would you please explain to us what conditions are there to have a world with human beings with a future? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the nice introduction, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great privilege for me to have the chance to address this international audience. I'm very happy to be here because the topics you deal with are very much at the center of what the Club of Rome is thinking about since 40 years. I'm also with the UNESCO on the decade Education for Sustainability, so there's a number of connections. And the issue today very much is between, let's say, the quality and the market forces. But before I go into that, let me start with the following observation. A very deep thinker once said, the invention of the language, the invention of the words, it was also the biggest trick in manipulation. So, I mean, we in a business of talking, and we talk and we talk and we create wonderful pictures, but the question always is, to what purpose and to what effect? And I like very much the book of Lakoff that says, never think of an elephant. It's a book that says the essential power structure on this globe is to get ideas into the brain of other people, like to get an elephant into their brain. And the hard thing with the elephant is, once the elephant is in, you hardly ever get him out. That has to do with the neural structure of the brain. In particular, it wouldn't help to tell a person with an elephant in the brain that he should forget about the elephant, because every time you tell him not to think about the elephant, he will think about the elephant. There's only one way to get the elephant out, is you have to invent a very sexy giraffe, and then you have to talk 1 year only about that and never about the elephant, and then the elephant will vanish with a kind of logarithmic exponential function. So the main point I want to concentrate on first is the issue, to what purpose do we have messages, and who does messages to what purpose, and which are the ideas that are transported. And the Club of Rome once developed a kind of list of intervention points with which you change the situation of humankind, and this list has 10 points, and the most interesting are the top 2 points. And point number 2 is to change the order frameworks of our societies. That is today the main issue, namely global governance. This is also the main issue in Rio +20, and it's the issue on which we make no progress at all. But there's even one more important intervention point. It's the point of the ideas you put into brains. And at the moment, it's maybe 10 ideas that make up our civilization, and we have very strong powers to replicate those 10 ideas in the brains. And one idea is about freedom, and one idea is about solidarity. And the point is that those ideas not easily always match. There is not always win-win between those ideas. It's a balance issue. And then we have those fights about what to do under the concrete situation we are in concerning these balances. And I describe you 3 or 4 examples that you understand what I'm up to. For instance, take markets. Markets are a wonderful instrument to create wealth, to create goods and services. But the question is, what type of market do you have? And what is the measure by which you measure whether your results are okay or not? On the UN level, we all would say, okay, never ever should a child do a slavish type of work. It's already difficult if you say work without slavish, because sometimes in theaters you will see children perform, and sometimes in sports you will see children perform, and you might also say this is a kind of work, but we are not sure whether we would like to forbid this type of work. But certainly nobody would say he would want children to do slavish type of work. And so all nations have signed that this is forbidden. But it's not forbidden in the WTO. In the WTO, it's the other way around. If children produced something under slavish conditions, still everybody is forced to sell it. And if he doesn't sell it, he would go to WTO court and he would be punished. This is the way we do it. We do it that on the one side we have a wonderful wording, and on the other side we have a regime that produces exactly the different. Of course we have arguments why we do that, and these arguments have a point, but it's very important to understand that for every purpose we have 2 things. If you talk about climate, the Europeans would say they do something about the climate. What they essentially do is they put their production to China, and then the CO2 emissions come in China. Then we would say China is to blame. The Chinese would say, why are we to blame? It's your emissions, it's not ours. Then we say, you take the money, it's your emissions. Then they say, it's okay, but per person we still have much less emissions than you have. Then we say, it's true, but you so many people. Now, I will not go deeper into it. The point I want to make is this manipulative character under which at the moment we have a talking about climate as never before. All international companies are now going for climate neutrality. They all are with the Global Reporting Initiative. They all report their carbon budget. They all reduce their carbon budget. They now even have companies who do the certificates about the correctness of their reports. And while we have always more reports, we have the highest emissions ever. We even have the highest increase ever. And I would say we are now really going against the wall, but it is all with certificates. Yeah, this is very important to understand how our system works. Now comes the media. And the issue here is between, let's say, the number of people listening and the quality you have. Difficult issue. Because first of all, the media in general is something that is market-driven, has ownership, has money interests, and of course, along with that, also has interests in transporting certain ideas. And there is different economic power in transporting ideas. I take two examples that you understand what those ideas might be about. India did a wonderful decision from the Club of Rome point of view by giving every Indian person in the countryside a right to a job, and the government has to care for that job. There is other countries, very powerful countries, that at the moment try to get rid of trade unions. Of course, you can say a trade union is a problem for an entrepreneur, and it might be a danger for the property rights of the entrepreneur that with the trade unions, the workers can organize to get more from him as they would get if there would be no trade union. Of course, on the other side, you could say, we as a majority, we only want a society and an economy which gives every person at least a chance to earn a certain decent minimum. And the Indians do that, and others do something different. These ideas are all around, and they are all fighting, and it's absolutely not clear what under this power structure will come out. Certainly, there is a tendency to make a lot of people digest those information on different levels of quality for different purposes, and all kinds of, let's say, manipulative tricks are used to have the broadest audience possible. So, I would say from this point of view, there is no general mechanism to enforce on media an educative dimension. There is no world law for media to be educative. Even if there would be that law, we still would be in split about what is it then that should be educated, and what is the right message and what is the wrong message. So I think for this debate, maybe it's reasonable to concentrate on a situation as we have in Germany and some other countries, but this is a special situation. That is a situation where within the media we have a segment that is government sponsored and has a special mission and has a special financing to work on educating the public. And then the question is, when you're in that special segment, how is in that special segment the trade-off between a big audience and a high quality? Again, one has to be very careful with the issue of words, because what does it mean, a high quality? Is there somebody who knows what is right or what is wrong? We can take the best universities, we can take the best professors, and they would never agree on anything. So it would be very difficult to do an operationalization of that program, but assuming for a moment we have an idea to differentiate between a certain triviality and, let's say, more involved issues, would we rather go for that, or would we rather go for a broad audience? And this is then, of course, an issue to be addressed. And I would put it like this. First of all, it makes no sense if you are so wonderfully specialized, educated, complicated that nobody listens. It makes no sense, yeah? Of course, if you can target a special group of people that as a multiplier has a very huge influence on other people, then it might still make sense to concentrate on a very, very small group, but then only because you have this indirect effects of those people multiplying. If your situation in whatever form is dependent on your economic success, then one thing is clear: whatever your conditions, under those conditions you have to be economically successful. There is absolutely nothing immoral in trying to be successful. There are some people who think if they're so elitary that they're not successful, being not successful proves how high their quality is. Yeah, this is nonsense. It's nonsense in itself, but it's also not the right approach from a practical point of view. Because the practical point of view must be, if you are in this exclusive position and you have a mission to educate and you have an idea what you should do in your education, and if you believe that you can do a lot with brains and in brains and bring brains forward, then you must try to be successful to keep that chance for a long time to have that influence. So, in a sense, losers never have influence on the long run. So it can never be a reasonable program to make yourself a loser. In a sense, winners have the biggest impact on others. So if you should be, let's say, a good guy winner is the best you can ever do, yeah? To be a good guy and a winner, and as a good guy winner, try to get as many brains on the right track. But if this is your optimization aim, then you would look for the most reasonable compromise between quality on the one side and audience on the other. Now, people familiar with optimization under more than one variable, they know this is essentially an issue of trade-off. And if you come from decision theory, you know if there's no trade-off, in a sense, you need not to do a decision, it's trivial. So all real issues in life always involve trade-off, and you have to find, let's say, the best balance under many conflicting aims. And usually you have a situation of something that is called a Pareto-type structure, under which in the beginning you give up a little bit and get a lot of the other. And in the other extreme you also give a little bit and get a lot of the other. While in the middle there is not so much effect. So essentially when you do an optimization of more than one thing, you will certainly not be at the extremes, you will go more into the middle ground, and in the middle ground try to find your optimal structure. And I think, and I will close with this is now from a point of view of a person in mathematics and operations research. It says, look for the right balance in the different aims you have to follow. Try a double strategy in being successful and still communicating essential things to a lot of people. In particular, try to concentrate on the main ideas. And when talking about the main ideas, try to make people understand how they usually are manipulated. I think that is the most important lesson you have to learn, is that in all public communication whatsoever, and it goes to advertisement, it goes to all kinds of information we get, the manipulative part is very big. And there's a lot of people who permanently communicate what is exactly the opposite of what they want to reach. They would never say what they want. They always pretend they want what all people want, and then they care for circumstances under which happens what nobody wants except them. So it happens what they want that it happens, but it is exactly the contrary from what they say. And it's very important to understand that. You a very, very big way forward once you understand that. I read a lot of newspapers all the time, not because I believe that generally the truth is in that newspaper. I read the newspaper because every day I want to find out how they want to trick me this day. And the important point is, even if they not trick me, they will trick millions. And once they tricked millions, I will be forced to behave as if I also would have been tricked, because the others will force me. That means at least I have to understand what they believe today. So there is a lot in reading, there is a lot in understanding, but it's very, very helpful to have learned the lesson that it would not be the right way to have the general idea that honest people want to communicate to you exactly that what they say, what they want to communicate. And then there is two types of guys. There is the naive people who don't even understand what they say. There is the other people who understand exactly what they say. It's the contrary from what they say. And to understand all that makes it much easier for you to help others. And I wish you all the best in doing that. Thank you.